Sup, fucker?
How the hell are you, bud?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. I'm actually feeling a little bit awake today, so...
I'd hope so. It's like almost 2 o'clock.
Yeah, well, it's daytime, so...
Yeah.
I don't usually, feel awake until, 8 o'clock at night.
I often get that. Or you get home from work and you're just like, oh, I'm fucking wired.
Yeah, all day at work, just I'm gonna go home, go to bed so early, and then as soon as you get home, I'm
It's showtime.
party time.
So yeah, today we're going to talk about high strangeness in New Orleans. Nolans.
Yes, we are, and it is a city that is filled with high strangeness, dating all the way back to its founding as a city, I guess. Well, technical founding as a city.
Have you ever been there?
I've been through New Orleans, but, we stopped there and then kept on driving to Florida because my parents just wanted to see it. So,
No, I see.
but I was probably 7 or 8 years old. I was just coming from Utah in the late 80s, driving through New Orleans, just this is weird. So yeah.
Yeah. I've known a few people.
I'd like to go there. I'd like to go there as an adult now.
Same. But I don't really want to go to party. I want to go to see all the crazy shit and the classic architecture in the French Quarter and shit.
Right.
I think all that would be so cool to see.
I would get so fat there, I think. Fatter.
Oh,
so fatter.
Definitely. The food choices there are amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know though. I wouldn't want to go at Mardi Gras time. The free boobs would be great, but the fact that those streets smell like piss all the time wouldn't be worth it.
Yeah, I don't think that's just a Mardi Gras thing. I think that maybe it's just like that all the time. Because the French Quarter, Bourbon Street, even when it's not Mardi Gras, it's still pretty party-ish.
Yeah, and it's a tourist trap too.
Right.
So it's going to be full of people getting drunk and pissing in the street, if not worse.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure somebody's got a bathroom there. There's got to be bathrooms, right?
I bet it's all the business owners down Bourbon Street are I'm so tired of people pissing in the street, but then they have a paying customers only bathroom.
Yeah.
Oh, there's no way I could solve this problem ever.
I need to take a piss, so after I piss, then I'll buy a yard of margarita.
Yeah.
So, let me help you by you helping me.
Dude, I will buy something, but let me piss first.
Right.
I promise. I'll let you hold my fucking ID.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've all had those gas station stops where you're I really have to pee. And they're paying customers only.
Yeah.
And then you're standing there doing the pee-pee dance trying to buy a pack of gum.
Yeah. There was one time we were driving, we were coming back from, we went to Seattle. I was with my brother and his wife and then their oldest daughter at the time. She was 10. I mean, she was pretty young. I was, yeah. Anyways. So we were driving back from Seattle and for some fucking stupid reason, we stopped and ate Pizza Hut before we left. Which is the worst fucking pre-road trip choice ever. And so all the way back, we were just stopping at every little gas station in town for one of us having an emergency shit. And there was one stretch where it was I swear it was 200 miles without anything, just freeway. And so I was getting the rumblies, next anything you see, just stop, I got a shit. And so we stop at this gas station. It was a truck stop. And I go running in and kick the door open on the first stall, and there's just fucking shit everywhere. And I'm fuck. go to the next stall, open it up, and I shit you not, there was a turd in the toilet. Like, the size of a fucking foot-long hoagie, dude. And I was just like, yeah, I'd rather shit my pants, dude.
You're not going to pull the old hover?
Nope.
Put your feet on the seat and just try to squat?
Nope. I held it for another, like, 75 miles.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's why you always keep those napkins from fast food bags in your center console.
Yeah.
This is a 911 Super Daddy.
Or some wet wipes just in the, in the console for whatever messes you need to clean up.
Whatever happens. So out of all the high strangeness and weird shit in New Orleans, which one did you enjoy the most in doing your research?
I would say probably the idea that I liked the most was the Rougarou, but there's not much information and people don't have like actual stories of finding a Rougarou or seeing a Rougarou. It's just lore. If you don't know what a Rougarou is, it's basically the French Creole people's werewolf. And it was brought along with like French settlers who had tales of werewolves or rougarous in France before they migrated here, and brought that kind of tale with them. I just thought that it was like, super cool cryptid.
Apparently named by a 3-year-old.
Yeah,
who saw Rougarou.
He's a Rougarou.
He's a Rougarou.
But yeah, it's like just the thought of like a werewolf stalking through the swamps gives me a nice little tingly feeling in my tummy there.
Got the rumblies in your tummy that only baby hands could satisfy. If you've never seen llamas with hats, you're fucking missing out.
Still haven't watched that.
It's pretty entertaining. It makes me giggle every time, and I've seen it like 30 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't delve into the Rougarou a whole lot.
There's really not much like to be found on it.
Yeah, I got like the opening Google search line of basically that same synopsis of it, and I was like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
My favorite, honestly, was the Comte Saint-Germain. I don't know if I'm saying that right, because it's a French word, Comte, but it's Count.
Count Saint-Germain.
And I was enamored with this story, because it doesn't just land in New Orleans. That's just kind of where that story somewhat ends.
Yeah.
But this dude's been around the world across time. And I thought his story was so fascinating that even if it's bullshit, it was still amazing to research.
Mm-hmm.
And I got all these crazy Highlander vibes while I was researching it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he is the Highlander. Maybe, what is the Highlander's tagline?
I was born in 1415 and on the shores of Loch Shiel. And I cannot die.
1415. So what was Count Saint-Germain is thought to be like 2,000 years old or something like that, right?
Yeah. So
but they really don't know.
At one point, he claimed that he was, let me read this name, Cardophilius. Cardophilus? I might have written that down wrong. So in the Bible, there's a story where Jesus is carrying the cross down the street, and he stops to catch his breath, and this Jew leans over and whispers to him, you don't need to rest now, you can rest when you die. Just telling him, quit being a bitch and carry this 400-pound cross.
Yeah.
And
to your death.
To your death. And Jesus turned back to him and said, you can rest when I return. And so it's kind of widely believed that he essentially cursed Cardophilius with eternal life. And then I'm not sure if that story continues in the Bible or if it's another piece of literature, but allegedly Cardophilius' family started growing old and dying, but he stayed the same age, And once his family was gone and passed away, he decided he was just going to roam and go to different places. Became this really interesting figure and has met all these classic historical figures like kings, queens, duchesses, met Casanova, all these people. But apparently he was fluent in many different languages. He was skilled in alchemy, music, and he extensively knew history as though he was there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hearing some of these tales that all kind of weave together, and there's some dissenting voices on it. But yeah, I'm just to the point where it's like, I don't care if it's true or not. This story is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it would make sense to be like, you've been around for 2,000 years, you're probably going to get super bored of like, so you might as well like learn how to play instruments and
yeah,
get into poetry and fuck around with alchemy, learn how to turn metals into different metals into gold and shit, and maybe that's how he funded his extravagant life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the people that claimed to know him was Frederick the Great of Prussia. I guess the king of Prussia at one point in 1800s or something like that, who claimed to know him, and kind of that's one of the key factors of people saying that they knew this person and that this person was real. So he shows up so he's going through time doing all these amazing things, and then he shows up in New Orleans in what,
1903?
1903.
I didn't even write that down, I just remembered it.
Yeah. That's good.
That's why my notes are sparse, and then I look over at yours and I'm like, God, now I look like an idiot.
Well, I was all over the place, and even if you look at my notes, like, I'm trying to figure out where everything is at. But yeah.
Yeah, landing in New Orleans, he was at, I did write this down, 1039-1041 Royal Street. And by all accounts, and this isn't just in New Orleans, people that he's talked to over the years say he was like a master conversationalist. He was unrivaled, as Casanova called him. And he would go to these parties, or he would host these parties, and he was never seen eating anything.
Mm-hmm.
He would just drink wine, or in some cases tea. But yeah, just sit there and shoot the shit with everybody and sip his wine while everybody's getting all fat and full on good food. And nobody across time has seen this dude eat,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of a red flag.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird, but also, I've been with my wife now for like 21 years, 22 years, 23 years, and I've never seen her mom eat either.
Maybe she's a vampire.
Maybe.
Or
I've never seen her drink red wine though either, so maybe who knows?
maybe she just stops at the blood bank right before dinner and just like
gets one to go.
sucking down one of those pouches like a fucking
Just
Capri
puts it in a
Sun.
Capri Sun.
That is funny. You know, when you're around people who like feel ashamed to eat, you feel so weird for them. Like they take a bite and then they like cover their mouth while they chew. Like, dude, that's how you eat food. It's okay.
Oh yeah, I'll have full on conversation with like bacon bits in my beard and mustard and stuff. Yeah, I give zero fucks.
As long as you're not like take a bite and so anyway. So anyway, like that makes me. That shit drives me nuts. Yeah, apparently he wasn't well accepted into like the socialite program in New Orleans, but slowly he got people to come to his parties, and word of mouth spread that he was throwing these amazing parties and that people should go to him.
Mm-hmm.
Slowly, they started to accept him in kind of a social setting. But they also said he was very well off money wise, but nobody knew where he got his money from.
Right.
Which has always been a thing to me, where if you see an immortal, like in a movie or a TV show or whatever, if they're not rich, they fucked up for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, if you're outliving everybody that you know and have ever met, you're probably going to like pick up knowledge and how to make money, and or in this case, make gold. Apparently.
Oh, one of the things they said he could do was remove the impurities from diamonds, or even enlarge diamonds. Which there was some dispute about that, where I can't remember who it was, but a king had him set up and gave him this diamond and was like, it's worth 600 whatever their version of dollars was. I can't remember. He's like, it'll take a month, and he came back with a slightly larger diamond that was worth more. But then they said it's not the same diamond. And then the queen or the duchess to that king was like, looked through all of his box of jewelry and was like, it's all beautiful, but it's fake. Which always kind of comes back to my thinking of dispelling what this person is. If you can discredit them with one thing, then everything comes into question. So what if they were like, they open his chest and it's all legit diamonds, and then they just lie about it, you know? Maybe they're worried he would flood the market with diamonds, making their diamonds worth less.
True. And they say now that even that like diamonds really aren't that rare. They just limit the market so the value stays.
Oh yeah. When you can make lab-made diamonds, granted, a natural diamond is still going to be worth more, but it's like, if it's a competitive market, you know, if you buy like a really nice cut or whatever, and let's say it's $1,000, but a lab-grown diamond is only $800, then yeah, you would limit the supply of real diamonds, so you could jack up the price on it.
Yeah.
Which to me,
that's what I would do if I was controlling the diamond trade.
I thought you did control the diamond trade.
Only off air.
Oh, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah. So yeah, he was throwing these elaborate parties, and one night at one of his parties, there's like a huge ruckus, right? And there's a lady of the night at his party. Hooker, prostitute.
Lady of the night sounds classy.
Yeah, I was going for, old time classy. She was a particular lady of the night. Ends up jumping off of his balcony, and like the police, or I don't know, she runs to the police, or the police come to the place, to the house, his house, where they're having the party. And she talks to the police and says that he tried to bite her neck and drink her blood, and so she ran away from him and jumped off the balcony, and she survived. It was like a second story balcony, I think. And so the cops decide they're going to go talk to him, and they go, and I don't know if they initially talked to him while the party was going on.
So they did talk to him, and he was known to be able to like talk his way out of anything, and he was just like, no, I don't know what she's talking about. She's
cool. A drunk hooker.
She's a filthy fucking whore. He ended up talking him out of it, and then there was another reported victim, so that's when they were like, all right, let's go in and see what's going on. And then I think he got wind of it, and then he fucking skipped town.
Yeah.
Because when they came in, he was gone.
Yeah.
Most of his possessions were gone. Except the bottles that were half red wine and half blood.
Dun, dun, dun.
You beat me by like 1 second on that.
Well, I heard it coming, and so I was trying to like emphasize your dun 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 moment.
I felt like I should have just left that for a layup for you. Just like lower the tone a little bit and then let you come in with a dun dun dun.
Yeah, maybe you laid it up off the backboard and we both grabbed it and slam dunked it.
Nobody's getting that ball away. We got it.
Double dunk.
Double dunk. Yeah. To me, that just screams vampire.
Yeah. Well, it was the basis of Anne Rice's character, Lestat,
yeah,
the vampire.
Which also takes place in New Orleans.
Which also takes place in New Orleans.
Which smells like plagiarism.
Yeah, I mean, the guy is presumably dead. So, I mean, maybe just a biography.
Loosely based.
Yeah.
With a different name.
Yeah.
Movies do it all the time. It's fine.
Yeah, kind of like Forrest Gump. It was just, a biography about my life story.
I believe it. I've seen the pictures.
Yeah, that was way back in my running days. I don't really do that much anymore. But got over that whole fucking Jenny situation.
Good. Jenny is like one of the worst movie villains
Speaking of
ever.
whores.
Speaking of whores. Forrest, I'm dying. You're going to have to raise the AIDS baby.
Oh, what a sad movie. Great sad movie.
Yeah. Jenny was still just the worst fucking person.
Oh, shoot. Complete whore.
If you had to make me pick between Thanos and Jenny, I'm going with Thanos. At least his motivation somewhat made sense. Jenny was just a terrible person.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I interviewed the vampire, Lestat. There was also... I don't know if that's where... I mean... Him, Saint Germain, and there was also a rumor of these people that were called the Casket Girls in New Orleans. This is where like the vampire lure kind of stems from in New Orleans. Which, if you don't know, like even today, there are people who identify themselves as vampires, and there's a thriving vampire community in New Orleans. Excuse me.
Nolans.
That that's what they do. They dress up. They dress themselves like vampires. They wear fangs. They live their lives as if they are vampires. And there are people in those communities that actually suck people's blood.
Yeah. Going down the rabbit hole on that, I watched hours of videos. I actually kind of put aside some of the other research because I got sucked into watching this shit. Sucked in. See what I did there? Like one guy when he was a kid, he bit his uncle, and he remembered tasting their blood, and from then on, he was just like addicted to drinking blood. And energy vampires, and a couple dudes on TikTok that talk about being vampires and shit. And like, I went down the fucking rabbit hole on that. It was bananas.
Yeah, I saw quite a few people on TikTok that were claiming to be vampires or identifying themselves as vampires, whether it be energy vampires or blood-sucking vampires. And all of them claim that like there are all their victims they're willing volunteer themselves to be fed off of. Energy vampires, it's mostly people talking about how they encountered somebody and they had a conversation with them and then kind of started feeling a little weird, and then all of a sudden after the interaction, the vampire told them, I'm an energy vampire and I just fed off of you. Like, cool.
Still sounds better than a Diddy party.
Yeah. Dude, that's so wild. I mean, it's not shocking at all about the whole situation. I mean,
I still get a little shocked each name that comes out, and I'm just like, no, not him too. Yeah. It is cool, but then you see the videos of the ones that are complete fucking posers.
Yeah.
And they're just like, I'm a vampire.
Can't you tell by my fangs and my contact lenses?
And they dress with like the big top hat. They look like the bad guy from Princess and the Frog.
Yeah.
Just all like Creole Cajun style. And it's just like, come on, dude. The only person you're fooling is yourself.
Yeah.
And those are just atrocious. But some of the other legends were really cool. There was the one guy on TikTok. His name was Domo? Something or other. I ended up subscribing to his channel because his content was interesting. And I still can't figure out some of the stuff he does. Like when he pokes his fangs out and then retracts them.
Oh, I have seen that.
Yeah. And he talks about it hurts to do it when you're not hungry. And he equates it to salivating.
Mm-hmm.
Like, those videos are pretty interesting. But the whole lore of vampires being in New Orleans is kind of makes sense, really, when you boil it down. The nightlife in New Orleans, tons and tons of tourists. You're talking tens of thousands, if not millions, of people visiting New Orleans every year. Who's going to notice one missing here or two missing there or whatever?
Right.
Plus the whole stench and everything like that is going to make hunting much easier if you go by scent, like vampires are rumored to be able to do. Everything stinks except for your target.
Right.
And you can follow their trail.
Yeah.
I think the whole thing is really cool and interesting.
Super intriguing. Yeah, I mean, yeah. New Orleans has always been kind of a melting pot place. Even before it was founded as a city, it was like 1702 or 1701 that it was founded as a city by the French, but it had been a city, technically a city. I think it was called Balbanca by the native people who had been using that as a trading post for different tribes for hundreds, if not thousands of years before Europeans ever came to the continent or anything. There was already a city there. And some people say that it was probably one of the biggest cities at times, like when a lot of the people would come to trade during the months where it's not flooded, because New Orleans has always been a swamp.
Yeah.
And so, like, in certain seasons, it's the rainy season, it floods. And so New Orleans, the city, was kind of built on the higher ground in the area, but, like, the natives would go there when the water was low. And at those times, they said that there was reported to, like, up to 8,000 to 10,000 people in this city, which was bigger than, like, London.
Yeah, it's like the size of New York at the time.
Yeah.
Well, and that's it being a trade route and a trade hub. That's how you got so many different immigrants from so many different places, because they would basically stow away on trade ships, and then they would just plant roots there.
Yeah.
Like, because you have Jamaicans, Haitians, French. There are Africans, like legitimate Africans from certain tribes there that have their own little subsects of culture within there. So such a huge variety of different people.
Yeah, it was a huge trading port in the 17th and 18th centuries, and was used as a slave trade port. And so all the Africans that were being brought up through the West Indies, from Africa to the West Indies, and then brought up through New Orleans and being traded off to people who would then take them to all the different colonies and sell them off. So yeah, it was just a huge melting pot of cultures, and there was a lot of people there that were like not white, so like Native Americans and freed colored people, like freed Africans that were just freed citizens. You know, they weren't slaves like most of the rest of the country was, like black people were slaves.
Well, and you also had a large colony of Mexican people coming over, because it's not that far. I mean, it's far if you have to walk, but to drive from like the border of Mexico to Louisiana is, I think it's like 8 or 9 hours.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's huge melting pot, great society, beautiful culture. And again, like the architecture there is so fucking cool.
Yeah. I kind of think it's because there was so many different like influences from different peoples, different peoples of different backgrounds. That it was like Spanish and French mixture of architecture, and the way that they had to build the houses so that they were kind of raised houses, because it would still back then when they first built the city and started building the French Quarter, it would flood every year, and so they would build the houses kind of on stilts. When you look at the houses, they look like it's like now they have like shops and stuff down in the bottom, and then like the residences are up on top, but it used to be just like kind of like open area, so that the floodwaters, when they rise, they didn't fuck up your house. But yeah, super interesting place, and a place for so much lore to be born, and like the Rougarou, like it was a wives' tale of, like, we've talked about cryptids before, like they were like old wives' tales that they would tell kids to try to get them from going and playing in the swamps and getting eaten by alligators. Don't go out there, the Rougarou's gonna get you. Yeah,
eat your vegetables or the fucking Rougarou's coming.
Actually, so this is weird part of the Rougarou story is that if you didn't adhere to Lent for 7 years in a row, then you would be cursed by the Rougarou. So it was kind of like a you better be a good Catholic, do Lent or whatever it's called.
I don't really, where you give up something for 40 days, I think it is. Yeah. Religion is a really cool aspect of there, and that kind of leads into another famous character, but largely the population was Catholic. But there was also, because of the Caribbean nations, that were people who came from Caribbean nations to there, brought over voodoo and hoodoo from Jamaica and Haiti and places like that. So their culture is just like sprinkled with all these interesting things like voodoo.
Well, voodoo is a West African religion, belief system, and it was brought over with the slaves. And as the slaves got brought into the West Indies, Jamaica, Haiti, and these places where they had these slave towns or huge slave encampments where they were then traded to different people into the Americas. And the tribes from Africa, they wouldn't let them practice their voodoo or their religion, kind of as a way to control the population of the incoming slaves.
It was kind of a whitewashing thing.
Oh yeah. So they wouldn't let them practice their religion, and so a lot of the slaves that practiced voodoo would disguise it as Catholic rituals and use Catholic insignia and stuff like that to symbolize different things in their actual belief system, which is why, like in New Orleans and Louisiana, in a lot of the voodoo rituals, they'll talk about like Catholic saints, and they'll use like crosses, and like in Santeria, same thing. It's kind of a sister religion to voodoo, or Voodoo, the Africans called it. But yeah, there was a couple different types of voodoo. So like the Louisiana, New Orleans voodoo, American voodoo, Haitian voodoo, and African voodoo, which are all. So looking into that, it's like there's no real central, like if you look at like Judeo-Christian religions, there's kind of a central belief system, and central God that they all believe in and just like have their own interpretations of it. Whereas this It's like there's not a pope, there's not a, centralized people who are in charge. Everybody just kind of practices it their own way. And they say that there's 201 gods or spirits in voodoo, which like isn't an actual number. It's just a representation of like, take a number and double that. Take a large number, double that, and then add one more to it. So it's like 201.
Yeah.
Or 2001.
Yeah, I always kind of respected that aspect where it's more interpretive religion.
Right.
Where it's like you kind of have basic fundamentals, but the rest is your own interpretation of it.
Yeah.
I always thought that was way better than just being like, well, the good book says this or that, you know, where it's all kind of hardline copied and there's no sensibility to change with time or anything like that. Whereas like you have modern day Catholicism or even Christianity where it's like they have hardline rules about a lot of things, but as times change, those things seem kind of very outdated.
Well, yeah, you look at like an eye for an eye, which like back then meant like an eye for an eye. Like if you killed somebody I know, I'm going to kill you, and that's perfectly reasonable. Whereas now an eye for an eye means like you did something bad and now I'm going to not like that about you. But I'm going to forgive you.
Or some of the like more contradictory nature of the Bible where it's like a man shall not lay with another man, and then later on it's like actually that's okay. Fucking pick a lane, dude. I've always found voodoo like super fascinating. And I remember when I was 12 or 13, and the song Santeria by Sublime was just like everywhere. And I remember looking it up, back in the day when you had to go to a fucking library and pull out a card from the Dewey Decimal System and go find that book.
Books.
Yeah, that has like words and shit in it. I don't know, fucking weird.
Read it.
Yeah, I went to the library and I checked out this book about Santeria, and I ended up reading most of it, and it was super interesting to me the way it was structured in terms of that same interpretive nature. But there were certain gods or deities, like just kind of figureheads that they were more reverent of, and it always seemed to me that was more interesting than just saying, okay, there's one god and that's fucking it. Yeah. It's like you have these different gods, and it's almost like Greek and Roman, where these specific gods or deities are over one factor of one thing. Like, this is the god of revenge, and this is the god of the sea, and so on and so forth. So I always thought that was cool, but it sounds so silly in retrospect, but what got me into voodoo was the Godsmack song Voodoo. Have you ever heard it? Classic.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you should for sure listen to that. It's very kind of gothic and ethereal, but that song was written based on a movie called The Serpent and the Rainbow, about this white man trying to kind of...
Wes Craven movie.
It is a Wes Craven movie. It's one of his earlier movies too. But he's basically trying to infiltrate voodoo to understand it better. I haven't seen a movie in a really long time. In fact, the only scene I directly remember is when they caught the dude and they nailed his fucking balls to a chair with a huge nail. And I remember going...
Why was the nail so big?
Why was the nail so big?
You could have used a tack and it would be just as effective.
It's going to fucking hurt no matter what. But yeah, that kind of got me into that rabbit hole of researching that, when that song came out 1.5 million years ago. But I always just thought that concept was so cool, but it's always portrayed as like this super malevolent thing of voodoo dolls to torture your enemies and these different seances and things you can do to try to like hurt other people, when voodoo is not about that at all.
Yeah,
that's kind of like the whitewashed version that was created.
I think that it was vilified for... I think it was vilified just to kind of keep that aesthetic of, almost like racism. Like it's whatever they're doing is bad. They need to convert to what we're doing.
If they do that, then it's like, if you vilify it in that same way, then other people are going to go, oh my God, you're a practitioner of voodoo, you're evil and whatever. And I would think that at that time, even a lot of black people in that area who practiced voodoo would be like, well, I don't want to be seen as evil, so I'm just not going to tell anybody I practice voodoo.
Yeah.
And it's a way to kind of like quell that whole thing down and be like, I'm Catholic, so I don't practice voodoo.
Which, I mean, we're talking about that right now, so we'll get into Marie Laveau, who is the voodoo queen of New Orleans.
The queen of New Orleans.
Yeah, she was born in 1802, 1802, 1801.
Yeah.
And she was born and raised and lived her whole life as a devout Catholic.
Yeah.
But she also practiced voodoo. And, a lot of the stories about her was that she was a voodoo witch. And, not a lot of the story, but, some of the stories. That she was, a voodoo witch doing animal sacrifices and, all this dark shit. When you look into the history of her life, she actually was quite the opposite.
She was a major philanthropist.
Yeah.
A women's rights activist. She was like the epitome of what real feminism is.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, she was also kind of a con artist in her own right, where
she was a hustler.
That's it. So these up and coming politicians would come up and pay her a shitload of money to help them win the election, and magically they would win. It had nothing to do with voodoo or rituals or seances or anything like that. It just had to do with the fact that somebody would pay her and she would tell her followers, hey, go vote for this person.
Yeah.
So she just swayed a lot of people and got paid a shitload of money that she turned around and gave away.
She was one of the most influential people in the city at the time. But she built her network because she was... So she was married at an early age. She was 20, maybe 18, 20 years old. She got married to one guy. Was married for a year, and then all of a sudden he disappeared. And nobody knew where he went. And so kind of created this lure around her, and everybody knew that she practiced voodoo. Mm. And so the lure kind of built around her as being a voodoo priestess and was capable of doing all these magical things, and being a clairvoyant. And that's one of the things that she was known to be. And turns out that she was actually a hairdresser. Mm-hmm. And all of the politicians and wealthy people of the time would go to her or have her come into the house and do their hair and makeup or whatever. And she would talk to the staff, and she would get in good with the staff of the house and learn all the gossip, and then they would pay her for advice, and then she'd reveal all these things that shouldn't be known to her, but she knows them because all the people in the house know it.
Well, and
the dirty secrets.
She had the ultimate fucking con/hustle, you know, because all the servants of the house, they were all black.
Yeah. And
so they're giving away secrets of their white steward, mm-hmm. basically, and it was like, oh yeah, I'll tell you all the dirt on this motherfucker.
Yeah. And I kind of think that she was kind of accepted to do all these things because I think she was only a quarter black, mm-hmm. and she was Creole or something.
Yeah.
And so she could kind of walk the line on both sides, we can trust this hairdresser. She's mostly white.
Mostly. Then, there's a little part you can't trust.
Yeah. And then, the servants in the houses, would trust her because she's making money in the house and she can help them out for shit that they need.
Well, that's a big thing she was known for, was helping small families.
Yeah.
Especially families that would fall victim to weather-based events and, lose their house or whatever. It wasn't just give them money, because she actually was fairly wealthy for being in her position.
Mm-hmm.
But she would help organize, not just giving them money, but having neighbors help. And I think I read one story where this family's house had just flooded out and it was destroyed. So basically got all the neighbors together to pitch in a little bit, just built them a whole new house closer to them. And it was like, don't pay us, we're just doing this, as Good Samaritan kind of thing.
Yeah.
So she was the ultimate businesswoman, in my opinion, on that behalf.
Yeah. She was, looking into her story, she really had an amazing life and did amazing things. Like, she helped fundraise and build churches, and she would go to prisons and do prayers with like people that were convicted murderers or convicted of being put to death, and she would do kind of their prayers with them and stuff like that. And so she was very well respected. And I know I read a story about, I don't know how much is true about this, but there was so much lore around her that there was a case, and the family was like 100% sure that the person that was being convicted of this crime didn't do it, was innocent. And so she had been talking to the family and going over the case with them or whatever, and she went to the trial, and before the trial started, she put 3 chili peppers underneath the chair of the judge and swayed the judge to
I remember that one because he saw it and was like, fuck.
And saw her in the crowd. I was like, did she really do something, or just like drop peppers there just to see what would happen?
Yeah.
Like,
it's not her fault that the judge was swayed by his own like biases against voodoo.
Yeah.
His own fear of what could potentially happen.
Genius. It's just all she did was put some peppers there. Like,
not a crime. Worse
thought he might get hungry for a little spicy snack.
That's a gangster move.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing that kind of surrounds her in the more, I'll call it paranormal realm, is these rituals that you can perform in front of her tomb or mausoleum, whatever you want to call it, where it's like you put these X's on her headstone and then you do this dance in front of her grave, and she'll visit you. Have you looked at the pictures of where her entombment is?
Mm-hmm.
There's no fucking space to dance right there.
No, it's covered with X's. They said they've had to repaint it. They have to repaint it like once every so often.
Yeah. Just
because it gets filled up with people vandalizing her tomb. Her mausoleum.
Yeah, even if you look into voodoo religion, there's no anything that has anything to do with putting an X on a tomb.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
It's just something some asshole started. Maybe it was like somebody who hated her.
I think it was probably like an urban legend. Even growing up here, there was stuff like Emo's grave. If you
I was going to say Emo's grave.
Go around it like 5 times or whatever, you'll see Emo or whatever. And we did that as high school kids. We may have went to the cemetery at midnight and did that. But you'd go out there and there'd be like 10 other groups of friends like running through the cemetery trying to do the same shit.
Well, I took my son there last year during summer, and it was late at night, and we were gonna go do that, but it was like the sprinkler was on and it sprang right at the tomb, and I was like, I'm not getting wet for that. Fuck that.
I'm not getting soaked just to not see a ghost.
Right.
And then do that dry right now.
Right. And then what would happen if you saw him? Then you got to run away. You're sopping wet,
and you have poop in your pants,
and you shit. You forgot where you parked. There's other people in the cemetery who are like, "What the fuck is this idiot doing?" Yeah. No. It's when we went, there was a lot of kids roaming around in the cemetery, and rather than try to like do anything paranormal, it became like a game just to see if we could get close to him and kind of evade, just to like do some Metal Gear Solid shit. Yeah. That became more fun than anything else there.
At least you gave those other kids a good story. Like, we went to the cemetery and there was these people creeping on us, dude.
I think at one point there was like two girls and a little boy who spotted us, and they were like, "What was that?" I heard something.
Well, you've created a story for them.
Yeah, it's probably perpetuated on TikTok,
Probably, dude.
but it's probably like way overblown.
Now you're an urban legend.
I am an urban legend. All day.
Oh, you can't even see that.
Oh, that shirt makes me laugh. That's adorable. Oh yeah, something I was gonna say on Voodoo is one thing I learned when we did that zombie episode way back when was that practitioners of Voodoo making zombies has been lore forever. But what it really was this ritual where they would basically lower the heart rate and rhythmic breath of a person to make them appear dead. So a slave would appear dead, and the slave owner would write them off as being dead, and then they would just hide that person, in the slave quarters for the rest of their life.
Mm-hmm.
But they weren't getting whipped no more.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I always thought was like...
That would perpetuate the stories of ghosts. Seeing, at that time, seeing this slave who was supposedly dead for 10 years, and all of a sudden you saw him walking through the courtyard.
Or he's, the Count of Saint Germain.
Could be. He's just drinking bottles of bloody wine.
I feel like the consistency between those two would just clash. Because wine is thin.
I like wine, but could it be chunky?
Slightly coagulated, just a touch. Age 33 years, perfect.
Maybe the alcohol content in the wine keeps the blood from coagulating? I don't know. I've never tried it.
Me neither. Allegedly. I couldn't drink blood.
Yeah.
I don't like the way it smells.
Yeah, I think it would taste like liver wine or something, probably.
Ew.
Just irony, kind of like... Wouldn't be good, dude.
It'd be like if you put something with the consistency of ketchup with a bunch of dirty pennies in there and some wine.
Yeah.
I think that's what it would be like.
Yeah.
Not clean pennies, fucking dirty pennies. The ones that are almost black.
They've just been like rolling around in somebody's pocket and through the gutters, and
They've been on the street and
Yeah.
picked up
They've
out of
been-
parking lots. And
they've been in a homeless encampment for 3 years.
gross. But yeah, Marie Laveau had a daughter too.
Mm-hmm.
And she definitely took up the mantle.
Yeah.
Not in the same way, because it's like the sequel can't beat the original kind of thing, but she did a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah.
She was very philanthropic in that nature, trying to help people, leaned heavily into the voodoo roots. She was actually at some point was allowing white people to come view their rituals and things like that, and eventually she kind of closed it off because it was dispelling the rumor of evil voodoo, but the people who would come and watch these rituals would still report back, oh, it was evil, it was satanic, it was the most terrible thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So she stopped doing like public viewings of those things. I've always wanted to watch one.
Yeah, live and in person.
Dude, that'd be so cool.
Yeah, I've seen them on... There's a documentary on... I think you can watch it on YouTube, where they like go through and watch a bunch of the... It's not the whole ritual. They kind of like shorten it up and kind of explain what's going on and stuff, because the rituals sometimes will last for hours and hours and hours, and it's like people drumming and dancing, and then there's usually like a priest or priestess. American Voodoo is run by women, so they'll have a priestess, and then like whereas like African Voodoo was mostly dominated by male priests. But yeah, they have a priest or priestess who's like chanting and dancing and going through the crowd and kind of like receiving and giving energies to the practitioners. And eventually through the rhythmic dancing and drums, and they claim to like reach a meditative state where they are possessed or inhabited by different entities,
Mm-hmm.
deities in their faith, in their voodoo practice, their personal voodoo practice, the saints that they call upon, they'll be inhabited by, and like, so that then the deity is kind of able to give like wisdom or like favors or, you know, stuff like that.
Do you remember that we did that episode on demonic possession,
Mm-hmm.
and we both came across the same story of the woman who was having pain in her arm, was going to doctors for years, couldn't figure it out, and then one of her friends was like, talk to this voodoo priest, and he's like, oh yeah, you got a demon right there, here, let me just brush that off for you. Yeah, I did this whole ritual, got it off of her, and then she was totally fine. Yeah, I always thought that was cool too, because it's like another one of those dispelling the evil nature, whatever, that's been made up about it. Because it's like, this is a guy who was trying to help this woman realize her problem right off the bat, did this one ritual, and she was fixed. Now, you could argue if it was some kind of neurological thing or whatever, and it was almost like a placebo effect. I don't give a shit. If it helped her, it helped her.
Yeah.
But then when you hear the guy talk about it, he's like, oh yeah, I've seen this before, I've dealt with this, and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, it kind of gives a little bit more credence that it's real.
Yeah.
So I always like that one.
Yeah. So, doing the research for this one, I went down the rabbit hole and I found this guy who's a minister, and his ministry is I can't remember what it is, but he's got a bunch of YouTube videos, and he was a practitioner of voodoo, and he was actually becoming a pretty powerful voodoo priest using like different magic and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up moving to Florida for a while, and then I think he moved to New Orleans for a time, and then moved to Haiti to study under like these practitioners there that were like the high priests or high priestesses, and but he's like talking about how he was starting to see like demons and stuff like that all the time, and talking to them like just like you and I would have a conversation, and he would see like these entities, and then started really getting a negative vibe from them, and then went to a church and then prayed about it, and then like in his mind was like sure that they were evil.
Mm-hmm.
And so he became a minister, like a Christian minister. Really interesting story, but he goes around to like a lot of different places where they're doing like voodoo ceremonies, and like a lot of his stuff is in California where they're doing like Santeria and stuff like that, and goes to like shops that are selling Santeria, like, because they'll have their own like little gree bags or like herbs and symbols and stuff like that, where they sell them out of these shops, candles and stuff like that that are used in the ceremonies, and kind of just talks to the people and asks them their experiences, and kind of in a roundabout way tries to convert them or give them his knowledge of God or whatever. But interesting.
It is. And one thing I did come across that I enjoyed hearing was if you go to a voodoo shop in New Orleans and you see a voodoo doll, it's not a real voodoo shop.
Yeah.
That's sold for tourists and shit like that. Whereas like the real voodoo shops are usually in the back room of someone's house, or they're kind of you got to know somebody to go there and get specific things or whatever. And I thought that was really interesting, which makes me kind of further my own opinion that I really want to go to New Orleans and I want to see some of these shops for myself. And I feel like, for one, it would make a super cool documentary.
Yeah.
But it would also be really interesting to put a little bit of extra in my own mind that this isn't a bullshit religion, or it's not about any of these evil deeds or whatever that you would do. It's a whole religion in and of itself that's very just ritualistic.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always been kind of fascinated with it anyway. So, with New Orleans, you've got the voodoo, you've got vampires, and it's a city where literally the dead outnumber the living.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's one aspect that I find super strange about that place, and it's the amount of serial killers they've had there.
Oh, yeah.
So there was the brothers, some people called them the Brothers Grimm,
Mm-hmm.
that had vampiric tendencies where they would capture people and cut open their veins and drain their blood and then drink it out of jars and shit like that. And then they were caught, put in prison, and then they escape prison somehow or another, and then they're seen at random times for the next 30 years. Did you read about those?
Yeah.
I didn't write their name down. I suck.
I didn't either. There was a few different mass murderer, serial killer people that I read about. I didn't write down their names or anything, but it was interesting to see. But I kind of chalk that back to a huge diverse city, lots of people coming in and out. So I think maybe it's just a opportunistic type situation where there's more opportunity for that type of thing to arise.
I agree, and there you could even factor into that there were lots of different people of different races, where especially in older times where police aren't going to investigate, they're like,
Right.
I'm white and I don't care kind of thing. I know that sounds terrible, but that's the way it was at the time.
Oh yeah.
So I get that, but what always...
I mean, even hookers, we joked about it earlier.
Yeah.
She's a fucking hooker. Who cares what she said?
She's an escort. Times
Lady
have
of the
changed.
night.
They should readopt that.
Yeah.
Instead of the Mustang Ranch, it's the
She
Ladies
just
of the
has
Night.
an OnlyFans account. Not that there's anything wrong with that, I guess.
It's almost the same thing.
Well, do you enjoy doing yours or
OnlyFans?
still? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a whole lot of subscribers, but who's going to pay, a 39-year-old dude money on the internet to watch him eat chips?
Well, I know it's not just me.
Go back to the shirt. Yeah, I think I've got 4 followers.
Proud subscriber.
I forgot where I was going with it. Oh, yeah. You threw me off. What gets me is the brutality of the serial killers, because it's not like somebody's just going out with a gun and just finds some random person and, pops them or whatever. It's these people doing horrendous acts to other human beings, with the brothers not only drinking blood, but they're dismembering bodies while they're still alive, things like that. Or the lady, I can't remember what her name is. She was a slave owner, and she would capture slaves and take them into this dungeon and just torture the fuck out of them. There's the axe murderer.
The Axeman.
Axeman. There's so many different ones.
So that one was so I actually remember that one from BuzzFeed Unsolved.
Yeah.
Where they're talking about the Axeman of New Orleans, the jazz Axeman. And he'd committed, it was 5 or 6 murders, just hacked these people up with an axe. And it was always an axe that was owned by the person who lived at the house.
Yeah.
And so the police were investigating it, and so the Axeman wrote a note saying, "You're never going to catch me. I'm going to strike again on this day, unless if I walk through the streets, if I don't hear jazz playing, then I'm going to strike. But if jazz is playing, then I won't kill anybody." And so they had a day where it was and it became a day almost like a holiday where you would just play jazz music.
It's almost like a little a little Halloween,
Yeah.
kind of,
Yeah.
where you're trying to ward off something evil.
Yeah.
Do
It's
you-
like, it's jazz day. We got to play jazz or else we're going to get axe murdered.
I don't think he would be able to do anything in this day and age. Because
Not many
two
people
reasons.
have axes.
Yeah. Well, even if you did, like, I would make a big show of it. Like, have my windows, my curtains open, and put it in a lockbox. But the other thing is, he's got his axe. He's coming at you. Just pull out your phone and Spotify jazz music. He's like, what do I do?
Damn it. He's like Mustafa. 3 questions, damn it.
It's like kryptonite.
Yeah.
You just start playing it. He's like, ah. Yeah, no, the brutality of all these different killers versus you think about like serial killers kind of in our time or in this generation or even the last one. Yeah, you had a few real fucking sickos, but they weren't all centralized in one city.
Yeah.
You'll get the one dude in California in the 80s, and then you got like Dahmer operating about the same time all the way across the country, and or even Ed Gein and Son of Sam and all these guys that are operating in different parts of the country, but you have several of them in a very condensed area, all in around the same era.
Yeah.
Which is, to me, weird.
It is weird. Maybe it's just something in the water. That swamp life is rough, dude.
Yeah. Swamp water's
I've
nasty.
seen Swamp People, the show.
Yeah.
Actually, that looks like such a cool life, dude.
Was that...
Being like a swamp person.
Did you ever see Swamp Loggers?
Yeah.
I only watched one clip from that show, and I'll never forget it, where it was like this dude's got a little boat, and he's trying to hire a hand to help him get this big log out of the water, and he's as white trash as it gets. Like, cut off denim shorts. He's got like the white boots like those Louisiana guys wear.
Yeah.
And he's got like a button-up shirt, and it's buttoned way down, and he's not in good enough shape to do that. Just the most redneck person you can think of.
Mm-hmm.
Picks up a dead squirrel. Oh, I'm gonna cook that up later, and he just shoves it in his shirt. And he goes up to like this random establishment. I don't know if it was a bar or a restaurant or whatever. This old boy's just sitting out there, just hanging out. He's like, "Hey man, what do you think about come working for me? We're gonna get this big old log out the water." And he's like, "All right." And he pulls out that scroll. He's like, "Here's your starter payment." He gives it to him. He's like, "Hey, thank you." Like, this is the weirdest shit.
Totally unscripted, too.
Totally.
That would be... I mean... Dude, you got dinners figured out. That's a payment.
You just got to put a little bit of processing into it, and you're ready.
Yeah. Like, growing up for a time in Orlando and kind of running through the swamps as a kid, I could see that as being a super fun lifestyle, you know, just doing that your whole life and hunting nutria for your food and alligators and
The swamp logging seems cool
yeah.
because there's a lot of problem solving that goes into that, and leverage and things like that. Like that actually would be cool. I couldn't do it though. I'm
Yeah.
terrified of gators.
Yeah. Gators are... I think they're more scary especially when they're in the water, just because you can't necessarily see them. But, I mean, we swam in rivers and lakes in Florida, and we knew there was gators in there, but, like, they don't... For the most part, they don't really fuck with people, like, for the most part. With, you know, how many people there are and how many gators there aren't that many attacks on people because they just don't see people as food. They're definitely capable of it, and if they're hungry enough, they will go for you. But like,
Have you seen that fucking video of that gator on the Florida golf course?
yeah,
It's enormous.
it's a fucking dinosaur,
Basically.
But yeah, we would go so our elementary school was like the field, and then there used to be a chain link fence there, but it rotted away, and so it was just like went to the field, metal laying on the ground from where the fence used to be, and then just like forest, which was basically a cypress swamp. And so we'd go from elementary school, run to the back of the field, drop our backpacks off, and enter the forest after school, and just Lord of the Flies for 2 hours until our parents got off work, and then we'd go home. But we'd see alligators back there in the swamps all the time, and we'd just throw rocks at them.
I could say that's one aspect I don't think I'd be very brave at.
Yeah.
No, I take that back. I'd be just like Jim Carrey in Ace Ventura 2. When he lands in the water, he's like, I'm alive! And then this croc comes up, and he's like... And then he just starts fucking the croc up.
Yeah, crocodiles are different. Now there are crocodiles in the bayous now. We're finding crocodiles, which they weren't a thing, 20, 30 years ago. But crocodiles are a lot more aggressive.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess the swamps down there are kind of getting taken over by boa constrictors, pythons, and I don't know about anacondas, but pythons for sure.
I watched this TikTok channel. I'm gonna have to find it and send it to you. This guy's got balls the size of a fucking dump truck because he just wanders around the swamp at night looking for different creatures. At one point, he's like wading through just like a low, shallow water, and he's looking for an anaconda. He's like, I think I've seen one out here, and he looks over, and there's a croc just like this far from him. He's like, oh, it's just a little swamp puppy.
It's swamp puppy.
Little swamp dog. And I'm like, I would have just ran.
I think I've seen that guy before. He was on so one of the main guys on Swamp People has his own show. I think is Landry is his name. The guy that talks like the guy from Waterboy. But he has his own show. I can't remember what it's called, where he just kind of like goes around and meets these other people that live this same kind of lifestyle he does, and they go and do adventures.
Yeah, he'll like walk up and see a poisonous snake on the tree, and he's like, come here, buddy. And he's just hanging out with him. Yeah, he's super poisonous, by the way, and then just puts him back, and I'm like, no! No!
Yeah, people down there, that's why they say those people are different, man. But it's like, I don't know, it's like, if it's like your backyard, pretty much, and you're growing up living in this, you don't have any fear of that stuff.
No, look at like Steve Irwin's kids.
Yeah.
Where his son has a show doing the exact same thing he does. It's because that's the way they grew up. So for me, like having not grown up around stuff like that, or having experiences with it when I was really young, to where I never built up a sense of like reverence for it. I just go, that's a dangerous fucking animal.
Yeah. For us, like in running through the forest, we were more afraid of homeless people that lived in there, because there was people that lived in there.
Yeah.
And B, wild pigs.
Oh, wild pigs they're devastating.
Yeah.
They give no fucks.
Yeah, and they can get really fucking big, and they'll eat anything and anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, going back to New Orleans.
Yeah, serial killers. You remember the movie Hard Target with Van Damme?
I don't know. All the Van Damme movies are so similar.
This
except
one's
for Double Impact. There was 2 Van Dammes.
There's twice the awesome.
Van Damme!
So Hard Target was directed by John Woo. It was less of a martial arts movie and more of a gunfighting movie.
Does he have a mullet?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that show.
So it's basically a remake of The Most Dangerous Game.
Yeah.
Where they're hunting homeless men, you know, and then Van Damme turns around and fucks them all up because it's a Van Damme movie.
It's Van Damme.
Yeah.
How are you going to get fucked up with a mullet like that, dude?
Dude, I think he could whip it and just knock you out. He was pretty gangster in that movie, though.
He was.
But that movie takes place in New Orleans in the French Quarter. which,
Oh yeah.
after having done the research of serial killers and talking about the point we
Doesn't he
made,
punch a snake?
yes, not only does he punch it, he bites off its rattler and then sets it as a trap, and it bites one of the bad guys, which is like,
right. That is a great movie, dude.
it's so cringy, but it's so entertaining.
I think I sent that as a meme to somebody the other day.
Probably sounds like something you would send.
Yeah,
You may have been to me. I don't know.
could have been.
I'm gonna look later. But yeah, no, it makes sense. You know, homeless people, vagabonds, hunt them for money in the French Quarter. Loud
That was a
music.
way more. Yeah. That's a way more interesting hunting ground.
It is, because you can, and they track it in the movie where they kind of go from like the Bourbon Street area where the Mardi Gras is happening, so there's already so much noise and people are drunk and the music is loud and everything. So it hunts them through there, and then through the mausoleums, the different cemeteries they have, because they have a bajillion fucking cemeteries there, through there and into the marshland where they finally get him. So it was like, that makes sense because you have such a diverse hunting ground. Your marshland is going to be like unoccupied. The graveyard is going to have people in it, but if you're in a graveyard in the middle of the night and you hear gunshots, you're just going to hunker down.
Yeah.
And then in the city, it was just like, who's going to give a shit? You're just there to drink and see titties and hand out beads, you know? But yeah, I just thought I'd throw that out there because that made way more sense in hindsight, knowing what I know now. Back then, I was like, they're just hunting people down in the street?
Actual serial killers, or was it just hard target happening in real life?
Dude. And then they just make up a story.
We should be cops.
We should totally be cops.
Yeah.
Only without all those pesky rules and shit.
No. Yeah, just like Swamp Detectives, new show.
Why are you not an executive producer?
I don't know, dude. I've thought about this, and I think I should just get a job. If there's a job as like an idea guy, like, what's the idea? And I'll give you a fucking idea. Sell it. Print it. Put it in production.
I'm down. I'm going to go home and write a treatment for it tonight.
Yeah.
2 cups in the French Quarter.
This is in a world plagued by serial killers and flashing titties.
And then it's like you got to play like the more upbeat cop who's trying to solve the crime, and I'll just be like the grizzled detective who just says like uncouth shit. One day the rain is going to come and wash away the scum of this city.
We should go get poor boys.
I'm so glad that exchange was on video. We should go get poor boys.
That's such an interesting accent. The hardcore. I don't know if it's Creole or Cajun accent because there's a difference, but I'm not sure which one is which.
I would kind of equate it to like there's a Georgia Southern accent and there's a Texas Southern accent. I imagine it's very similar, but it's more of an inflection thing.
I thought I wrote this down, the difference between Creole and Cajun, but I did not.
Dude, going back to Swamp Cops, I don't know if we can do it. There's already been one incredibly famous cop in New Orleans. You know who I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. The greatest cop of all time.
Sensei Sausage Fingers.
You're talking about Nico, right?
Nico Toscani. Nico Toscani is under siege. Yeah, the Steven Seagal's Lawman, for those who don't know, is one of the greatest comedies ever to grace TV. It is so bad. I had to go down the rabbit hole because, as everybody who knows me famously knows, I have an affinity to talk shit about Seagal. So I have to find more shit to talk shit about. And the fact that he opens the show, You may know me from the movies, but for the last 20 years, I've been a cop. And then you look up him being a cop. He was never a cop. He was given like this honorary
He was
title.
deputized.
He wasn't even deputized. He was just given an honorary title. It's literally like designed for people who do good Samaritan things. Like if you stop a gunman or whatever, they give you the same title. But then here's fucking fat fuck Steven Seagal just like, yeah, man. And then every time he talks to a different person of a different ethnicity, he tries to have that same inflection. What's up, cuh? Hey, where your mom's at? And you're just like, dude, stop. I know you're from Detroit.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
I'm super relatable. Maybe he saw his pal Chuck Norris doing great things with the Walker Texas Ranger series and was like, I could do that,
I could totally do that.
but I'm going to do it for reals.
Oh my god, it's such a bad show. It's one of those shows that I want to do like a video commentary on, where like we watch the show and just beat the shit out of it all the time.
Yeah. I think I watched like 2 episodes. This has got to be like 15 years ago, maybe. It was a long time ago because I was watching it on the internet. And it was like one of those things where you just like get stoned and try to find the dumbest thing you can find to watch. And you're just like, oh man, is he really a cop? I've never seen this Seagal movie.
And then anytime they have to chase a suspect, he's like, go get him, go get him. I'll be right here.
I'll bring the car around.
I think Swamp Cops would be better.
It'd be way better. Yeah. Let's do it.
And then anytime we have to deal with a hooker on the street, we refer to her as a lady of the night.
The lady of the night.
We're classy.
We're not those typical guys that will just call them prostitutes or hookers or
Yeah, like
whores.
Hooters. Liam Neeson. Where's the hooter? The what? The hooter. Dude, you don't do a cowboy very good.
Liam Neeson's is the shit. Anyways, going back to New Orleans.
We went off the beaten path, but it was still tertiary.
Yes, it was right along the swamp land lines, which, you know, they're hard to track in the swamp, so we get a little off course. It's okay.
It happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to stop and fight a gator.
Let's see. Oh, so we didn't really talk about the Casket Girls.
Oh, correct.
We got off on a tangent on the Casket Girls. Anyways, the Casket Girls, when the city was first founded by the French, there was a lot of men in the city, and they were trying to make the city more populated, and they couldn't really do that with just so many men. So they kind of needed...
Hasn't stopped San Francisco from trying.
Yeah, what's their population now? It's still pretty high.
I don't know.
A lot of migrants or people migrating into San Francisco.
I don't think people can afford to live there.
Yeah, I can't even afford to go on vacation there.
Yeah.
I don't really want to anyways, but
Same.
I've been through. Yeah, seen it.
I've seen it in pictures. It's good enough for me.
Yeah, Golden Gate Bridge was a bridge
It's
that went
there.
across the ocean. I actually would like to go to Alcatraz and just to see if it's haunted.
That's a dream.
Yeah.
Casket Girls.
Casket Girls.
Yeah, wasn't it King... Was it King Louis?
King Francis, the Casket Girls. Where are they? They're on here somewhere. Oh, okay. 1727. This is organized by... I want to say it's King Francis.
That sounds right. I told myself I didn't need to write it down because I would remember it, and here we are in the moment, and I totally proved myself wrong.
Yeah. So, as a population is kind of growing, but it's not growing as fast. I mean, plus it was kind of a ploy to be like, okay, this is our French established city. We need to grow the population as fast as we can. So what they did was they got women from France and sent them over to New Orleans to kind of intermingle with the population and start having babies and raise the French population in their city. And so they send these girls over, and so the people of New Orleans see these women start arriving off of boats, and they're looking at these women, and they're really sickly looking, super pale women that are carrying these. They call them the casket girls, but it was casquette in French, which means wooden box. It's not like casket as we think of it today, as a what you're buried in casket, but it was a small box, kind of like a trunk, that they were carrying their personal belongings in. But they went and stayed at this nunnery. The Ursuline nuns took them in and were kind of supposed to like house them as they intermingled with society, and kind of eventually went off on their own. Well, what ended up happening with a lot of the girls was that they showed up from France and France's high society, arriving in this budding swamp town.
It's a trade center.
And
lots of unsavory types there.
Lots of unsavory types there, and don't really like going out and intermingling with any of the people and these rough and tumble frontier people. So they end up staying in the nunnery or the convent, whatever it's called, and so there's all these wild rumors that are spread about these women that like showed up and they went to live there, and they were like sickly, and they were carrying these wooden caskets, and the rumor got out about them being vampires. And they were delivered here and kept in the convent and locked in the third story of the convent, and that they still live there today because you can't go into the third floor of the convent to see it.
Well, not just that, it's there was a rumor. I was going to say something else, we'll come back to it, but there was a rumor that because of how pale their complexion was, that they couldn't be out in the sun very long, and they would turn red and blister in a very short amount of time, like an ungodly short amount of time.
Louisiana is fucking hot.
It's humid as fuck.
Yeah.
So it definitely played into that factor of people thinking that they were vampires. Like, they go out in the sun for 20 minutes and they're just like,
yeah.
Some of the women who did get married still kind of stayed in contact with each other, and they were all kind of having the same issue where they would find husbands and they would start rearing children, but the husbands were never around. They're out trading or trapping or doing whatever they do to, bring in money for the family. And they started this movement, and I can't remember what it was called. It had a very clever name to it. But it was basically like, unless you start coming home and helping around the house with the family, no more booty. And for the life of me, I wish I could remember the name of it, because it's bugging the shit out of me. But yeah, it had something to do with...
Why don't we just think of some names that it could be? We could just rename it now.
The Cockblock Revolution.
CBR.
I dig it. Or the Booty Withholding Movement. BWM.
BWM. This helps me think.
Yeah, maybe I should try that. BWM. Okay. I'm channeling something. No, I got nothing.
We'll put a footnote on that. BWM. We'll come back to that.
Yeah. But, yeah, so the king heard that these women weren't having a good time. They were not finding husbands, and immediately called for them to come home. Sent a ship. Most of them went home. Some of them elected to stay. But there were some ghost stories from the nunnery, from the 3rd floor, saying that the shutters would randomly open in the middle of the night. And it was so widely believed that it was these casket girls haunting this place that the Pope himself blessed these nails to be used to nail the shutters shut.
That's right.
And they still open on their own. But if you go up there in the daytime, the nails are still perfectly in place. Dun dun dun.
Pope bless nails. That's big time.
It either you're talking about some super powerful entities, or the Pope is really not powerful. So there was
He's not as powerful as the wind, I guess.
I could promise he's not. The Pope can't take down a ship on his own, but the wind can.
No.
There was a story about these 2 guys who were doing an investigation into that whole thing. And obviously they weren't allowed on the grounds, so they basically slept on the street outside of the nunnery with their cameras and shit focused. And they saw the doors open, and then they were kind of spooked by it. That story kind of goes dead because in the morning they were found dead on the same sidewalk.
Huh.
But they reported seeing, the windows open and seeing a figure moving back and forth in there. I don't know how far away they were, or what kind of lens they were using, or what, that they would be able to see these things, or if it's just an urban legend. But it's fucking cool.
Yeah.
That just shows you don't fuck around over there.
Yeah. Or else you'll get fucking hard targeted. That sounds like a case for the fucking swamp detectives.
You beat me by 1 second. You're over there. Yeah, looks like they have puncture marks on their neck, and I'm just like, they probably deserved it.
Is it 1 or 2?
Sounds like someone's doing our job for us. Case closed.
Yeah, there's so many different avenues that my little rabbit holes took me through. Different, like, can't remember what there's like floating lights in the swamp that are supposed to lure people out. The Fleur something they're called. Another that's another one of those urban legends. I saw a lot of videos on TikTok from people saying they had like a, what do they call it? Pinholing or where they have like a. So there was a lot of people that were saying they went to New Orleans for a vacation and ended up like walking around and then found some little hole in the wall place where they went inside and everything was all vintage and everybody was dressed a certain way and they had like coffee and beignets and then they left, and then so like the next day they tried to go back to that little spot that they loved, and then they can't find it anymore. And so they're talking about it as being almost a time slip where the city kind of reshifts into another time space.
I remember one of those specifically where there was 2 couples on vacation, and this was in like the 80s or 90s, and they didn't have their lodging, or no, there was an issue with their hotel, so they had to go find another place to stay. Went into this hotel, found the price was incredibly cheap, like wicked cheap, and then they were getting this like top tier service, but everything was old, and the way they would pour the bath instead of have a shower, and the food that they were prepared was like made out of whole original ingredients and things like that, and it was like this super amazing service, amazing place to stay. And then they got up and then they went out for some touristy things the next day. They came back, that hotel was non-existent. And same thing, where you talk about these weird slipstreams where people go into these spots and it's like from another time. Granted, there are bars and hotels, there's still speakeasies there and stuff like that where they have that old-timey feel, but you know that it's just like a manufactured thing. It's how they get their customers. It's their niche. But if you walked into a place where everything is old, and the people, they speak differently and they act differently, you're going to question it and be like, what the fuck is going on? Yeah. But you know what? This room's only $8. Let's go for it.
Right. And you can get a steak the size of my fucking head for 25 cents. Milkshake only costs a nickel.
Do you want some cigarettes with that steak?
Yeah, they have vampire speakeasies where you meet somebody on the street who says that they're a vampire, and they'll tell you to go to some specific place.
Give them the password.
And they let you through the secret stairway up to the vampire speakeasy, which super cool for a vampire themed bar.
That's all it really is.
Tourist experience that you can make a TikTok video about.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that you can just Google it, and they'll be like, or these are the passwords we use on this day, and then you can skip the meeting some weird guy on the street and just go in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I saw a video of it, of the inside, and it definitely has a vampire goth aesthetic.
Yeah.
But then there's some other more pop culture vampire stuff. Because I remember in one corner there was a stuffed animal of Dracula and shit like that. Yeah. And I'm like, it would be fun.
Yeah.
But yeah.
How stupid would you feel though if you got invited to go to the vampire speakeasy, and so you're like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, and so you go and buy all this vampire goth stuff and dress up like a vampire so you'll fit in the vampire speakeasy, and you go inside and it's actually a Blade vampire speakeasy. So you're dressed like a goth vampire, and it's fucking people that look like they're in the Matrix.
And there's German techno playing.
You got a top hat on.
There's the DJ with the lights on his head, yeah. And you're just with your cane and your big top hat and your fucking your long tail coat and again, you look like the fucking bad guy from Princess and the Frog. You got a necklace with little tiny skulls on it.
Oh, fuck.
You're
wrong
just
vampires.
Looking up at the sprinkler system let's get out of here.
This is a brand new coat. I don't want to get blood on
it. Even worse, you go in there and it's 30 Days of Night Vampires. Then you're like, I really want to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Oh, the door's locked? I'm going to make a David-shaped hole in that wall right there. Promise.
Yeah. So, interesting. Very fascinating place. It seems like, go for the food, stay for the vampires and ghosts, I would say.
I will say, in doing the research on this, I was going to bring it up to you that I think we should do a trip there next year.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a couple days or whatever, kind of go out there and see some of the sights during the day, partake in the nightlife. If nothing else, just to have that experience. What I really would love to do is just make a documentary about it, of all the weird shit that goes on. But that would take weeks.
Yeah, and I mean it's a big city, and walking around there filming, I don't know, could be dangerous, but a lot of people do it.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, that'd be fun.
I think we should plan on it.
Yeah.
And while we're there, we'll just apply for the police department and tell them, look, we're very niche, but we've got something that you need.
If we could just get one of those honorary titles as cops, like Seagal had, that would be preferable. We don't actually want to do any paperwork or anything like that. If we could just hang out at the crime scenes and talk about stuff, I'm a hell of an idea, man. I don't know if you've seen any of my videos.
We're just at the crime scene, and you're just hunched over the body, just looking things over, and I'm standing there doing my bit. Chief comes up. So what'd you figure?
What are you guys doing here?
The chief comes up. What'd you guys figure out? I don't fucking know. Let's go get a drink. Swamp cops.
Swamp cops.
I'm gonna add that one to the list. We're just gonna be on TV nonstop.
I know, dude. We've got so many projects going.
Morons of Skinwalker Ranch,
Swamp detectives,
Swamp Cops,
Swamp Cops.
I don't know.
Advocates for the deep BWM.
Then we had one for Appalachia too.
Did we?
Well, it was like I think somebody else was doing it, but I think we talked about it of like buying one of those houses and doing an Airbnb.
Yeah. Shit, man. We're gonna be rich.
We're fucking entrepreneurs here, dude. We're just buying into the fringe sector with the stupidest fucking ideas that are gonna make some money.
Yeah. For anybody that doesn't know that happens to watch this, this is legally binding as a copyright.
It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube.
It is copyrighted to this channel.
Okay.
We own it. Go fuck yourself. All right, let's tighten that one up. Super cool place.
Mm-hmm.
I have nothing to discredit any of those topics.
No, me neither.
Normally, I have something where I'm like, eh.
Well, the Rougarou, the one thing that really says, yeah, that's super bullshit.
I'll give you that one.
Is the one factor is that the way that if you're getting chased by a Rougarou, you're getting attacked. If you drop 13 pennies, he'll stop because he can't. He likes to count things, but he can't count past 12.
Oh shit!
Yeah. So it's kind of like
what's 5 times 5?
Remember Leprechaun, the movie Leprechaun?
Oh my god!
And he's like, he likes to shine shoes,
and
so he's chasing after him, and they start throwing their shoes at him to slow him down. Same concept.
You're running from him. You intentionally scuff it on the curb, dude. Air Force One's fix this shit up. He's like, fuck.
Stop running, you're creasing them J's.
All right, that was fun. I'm glad we got that one done.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for the next one.
Yeah, I'm gonna have my brother work on my resume right now for Swamp Cops.
Dude, send it. Okay, I love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Swamp Cops.